Hello, it is Sunday the 16th of February. It is a day after the AMA Ask Me Anything, which really wasn't an Ask Me Anything because it was obvious that both Justin and Ned were kind of ignoring questions. They may say they weren't, but they were very strategic where they took the questions from. And props to Justin, he did answer some questions when I could tell he didn't really want to. There's a lot to unpack, right? And everybody is invested in Steem in different ways. Steem, the blockchain, and Steem it, the front end, because that's kind of how you got to look at it. Like, you know, there's two ways to go about this. You can either look at it like, well, there's lots more ways to go about it, but the two ways that I see it is Steem it was one of the originating companies where a lot of code base comes from. They propped up the Steem blockchain for many years, paying massive bills by selling a lot of the Steem. They pre-mined a lot of Steem. And I was watching the AMA yesterday looking for, I don't know, I was looking for them to do more conversation about how they were going to maybe shape Steem and Tron and kind of like interface them together. Because if there's one thing that I see that Tron doesn't have, it's not social, as far as I can see. If you can point me to a Tron-powered social site that I can check out, please do in the comments. But the top 10 dApps on Tron are gambling apps, which doesn't bode well for the way that the acquisition might go. Also, if we look retroactively at all the acquisitions that Tron's ever done, or at least let's have a look at BitTorrent, what I see common with Tron's acquisition patterns is it acquires products that have not managed to nail that market, that final market end game. So BitTorrent was always in murky waters anyway, because they tried and tried and tried. They tried BitTorrent TV. They tried to create a hub where you can upload and people could pay for it. And in the end, Bram Cohen, the guy who programmed it, who's now got 3 lovely kids, took $140 million from Tron and walked away. Now, the upside of that particular acquisition, so what I'm saying is, like, Tron has had a habit of just buying, I won't say dying projects, but good technologies that have not had an end game, that have not quite got to market properly, or the market's just gone, I don't understand it, I don't need it, or I don't want it, like, why don't I use this over here? And BitTorrent's really muddy for me anyway, because the majority of people that use it download fucking movies illegally anyway. If you've got stats to prove that other people are using it more than that, then let me know, because I don't believe that to be true. So when Justin, Sun, and Tron talk about these big numbers of 100 million people using it actively, they're not particularly users of a platform like you have users of Steem. Because they're not necessarily adding to a chain like the Steemians do, like with blog posts and videos and interaction on Discords and stuff. They're just literally looking for a torrent and they're downloading it and they're sort of wrapping that into their user. Another thing I saw yesterday is if you go to Tron Scan, they've recoded uTorrent, which is an application for downloading torrents, and probably the most popular one. I think they even bought that as well. So they're being you got to think about this very carefully, because Tron are being very strategic about their acquisitions. And if you try and marry that with Justin Sun's social media, his Twitter account, you know, what he's about is growth. He wants to dominate, or he wants to have the most reach he can have possible. Now, I don't know if that unlocks a certain amount of investment for him, or if it's just like in his DNA or his investors' DNA to acquire as much as possible. But China is coming like hard. Like, China is coming hard when it comes to cryptocurrency domination. Like, it's across the board. So so uTorrent got recoded. And I've noticed in TronScan that some of the transaction records have like a identifier of uTorrent. So obviously that's going to bolster your transaction records on the Tron blockchain. It's going to make it look a lot bigger if you've got like supposedly 100 million people using the updated uTorrent client. which to investors who might not know any better, all they're seeing is we're doing well. The transaction records are doing well. So just take all that into consideration and put that to one side for a minute. So that's kind of where Justin and Tron are at. Is like growth, growth, growth. Let's buy all these kind of, I want to say dying and failing projects, but I don't believe Steem to be that. I believe that Steem has something that Justin and Tron wants, which is the social component, the passion, the intelligence, the commentary. Like, I feel like Steem is the only blockchain out there on planet Earth that has this level of intensity. Some might say drama, but it's fucking intense to be on the Steem blockchain. Let's be honest. Also, did Ned look like he was hostage yesterday? He was in a room with like black curtains. I felt like that was all prepared. I don't know if like he was actually in Justin Sun's back room. He'd flown him over and like he was paying him off. I watched probably about 5 or 6 hours yesterday. I watched the AMA and then watched Agro's show afterwards, and it was interesting to watch how everybody rallied together. I got the feeling there was two things that went on in my mind that I'm concerned about, and it might be tied to the reason why Steem hasn't really taken off, or it has taken off, but then we've lost loads of people from, I don't know, spam and upvoting and downvoting and just power struggles in the chain, which I think you're always going to get in decentralized chains when there's no real people come here for the ability to have their own governance on their own account, and then you get people like trying to fuck you about. Where was I going with that? So anyway, I was watching this AMA, and I was watching it I watched it till the end, till Agro stopped streaming. Dead interesting to see everybody kind of talking everybody else off the ledge, right? There was lots of witnesses there. There was lots of, people who are hardcore integrated into the blockchain and want to see it succeed. But I couldn't make my mind up if it was a power struggle to maintain power, or if it was a power struggle to maintain democracy over a DPoS blockchain. Like, there was initially, it started off like full-scale panic because we didn't get anything really of any substance. I believe there was a lot of pre-questions sent to them that never got answered, so that would piss a lot of people off. And so there was a lot of people talking everybody down from the ledge. Like, I know people were thinking of powering down and all this kind of stuff, and they were going to do this. And it was interesting to see straight away after the AMA how all these witnesses were like, we're gonna have a plan, we're gonna have an action plan. And then there was all these additional snake oil guys that were like trying to, we need documentation, we need legal stuff, we need da. So I couldn't make my mind up. Was it passion for having a immutable decentralized blockchain? Because if so, fucking ace. Because I think that's what the majority are here for, is that it's open source, it's democratized blockchain. You can't sell it. You can't sell the blockchain, right? You can Steem it and all its assets that go along with it, the pre-mine and everything, and Ned's share. But it was so interesting to watch people's reaction to the fact that Justin Sun now had 73.235 million Steem. And this overwhelming, like, oh, we could vote out the witnesses. So I couldn't work out if it was just panic from the witnesses of maintaining their status and their position, or if it was about securing the blockchain. But then as the hours went by, it changed. And I don't think there's anywhere on the internet that had as a thoughtful conversation as what the Steemians did yesterday. And it was cool to get a lot of the people who were not witnesses into the conversation as well. I would have loved to got on there, but I never fucking get on there because, I don't know, maybe it's just my fucking attitude or something. I don't fucking know. Sorry for having an opinion. So it changed. It changed from like people talking people off the ledge to like, okay, maybe this will be good for us. Maybe his social reach will be good for us. Maybe he's a good investor. There is something that I want to say about that. And it's concerning to me that it was okay when Ned was the big shareholder, because I feel like people felt like that relationship was pliable, or they could manipulate it, or because he was a passive partner, that it was fine to kind of like just keep the status quo. But then as soon as Justin Sun the Unknown comes along with this big stake, then everybody panics about their position. Which I think is probably what's driven either a lot of people away because of the power struggles and what ends up kind of appearing to be ego and vanity of like the power position status. And yet you need those 20 governance witnesses to secure the chain. So I think there's been a lot of fucking progress happen in 24 hours. I think there's a lot of people talk to people off the ledge. There's a lot of people being a bit more accepting of like, okay, this is what it looks like to secure a open source decentralized blockchain. And we still may see some kind of fork situation happen or bigger dialogue back and forth with Justin Sun. And if Justin Sun is smart enough, and if he really, really wants to be the king of the castle when it all comes to crypto, he will fucking listen to some of those Steem witnesses, because if he can get behind the idea of a blockchain technology should be decentralized and look at what Steem is, instead of just throwing up some nodes and being like, yo, Tron network or Tron it, I look at it and be like, oh fuck, like this is a secure, decentralized network of servers with great server admins and great passion behind it. If he can be like, put the flag in the sand and say, Tron supports decentralization at its core component, then we could go to fucking Saturn, not fucking the moon. We could go way past that, because then we become almost like the social mediator between all of these other chains, the 2,000 odd whatever change projects or whatever out there, who, somebody said it yesterday, wish they had that acquisition from Tron yesterday. I saw a lot of Twitter people being like, oh, you've swapped one guy for this guy, and, you know, like, it's a worse guy for this guy. And I get that, because a lot of people don't like Tron. They see it as a shit coin. And, you know, looking at the DApp top 10 of it, like, I don't give a fuck about gambling. I don't care about gambling. I want a mutable block ledger blog that I can post to and know it's immutable, it's going to be up, it's going to stay there, and it's not impervious to hacks and takedowns, but there's a bit of, you know, there's a camaraderie of keeping that up. There's an uptime SLA for blockchain blogs, and I feel like Steem is the number one at that. So a lot to take away from yesterday. We went from talking down from a ledge to, you know, being accepting of what could happen. And, you know, I personally don't like Justin Sun's style of Twitter and social media. I feel like it's a little bit too cliche and a little bit too smooth. I feel like it could be so much more with a proper team behind him. You know, people talk about him as being a businessman. I would love to know where all the fucking money comes from. Like, who are the investors? Where is the money actually coming from? I have just this horrible feeling that, you know, businesses today concern me because we never drilled down to the sources, right? You don't have to look at those top 10 dApps on Tron and see how much money is being generated by these gambling sites. Is that where the majority of people, the Tron people, spend their time, is gambling? What kind of percentage of that is global, or is it just Chinese? You know, I know Chinese love to gamble, so like maybe that's legit. But I also have concerns that maybe it's ill-gotten gains money that's just being whirlpooled through all of these dApps, and then they use that to acquire legit companies. I could be wrong. I may be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But like, the source of where funds and money comes from, to me, is important in terms of like the emission of that stuff, like how you end up then acquiring it for your engagement time with the chain, and how much the chain's algorithm decides to give you some of it. So there's a lot of things to still dwell over, but I feel like Tron's got a great social marketing. I'm still pissed that he spent 4.5 million on a dinner with Warren Buffett. I mean, like, what are we doing what kind of like ego, vanity, gloat thing is that when you're spending that amount of money to, you know, I don't know. Fuck knows. Money's crazy, man. When money gets into the situation, it gets a little bit distorted for me. But yesterday was interesting. If you didn't watch the video, Agro put up a copy of the chat between Ned and Justin. Nobody really talked about. One thing I will notice over the last 5-6 hours over that video yesterday, Ned didn't get talked a lot about. Ned was like, fucking hell, Ned's out now. Thank God for that kind of thing. Nobody really talked about like how much Ned made out of it, or what Ned's going to do next, or anything like that. As far as a business acquisition, like, I don't know what tipped Ned over to be like, I've got to get this gone, or I've got to get this moved, or maybe he had some conversations about SMTs and where it was at, and maybe he wasn't happy about that, or didn't see how he could keep on paying the team, or he didn't want to dip below a certain level of steam. Had a figure in his mind. I'd be interested to know how much he actually sold it for, and where he's actually going to like set up his bunker, because I'm sure there's a lot of people not happy with Ned. But it was interesting how people were just straight on to like, fuck, what's Justin's son going to do to our Steam blockchain? Yeah, I don't know. Right now, I think, I mean, it doesn't impact me as much, because a lot of these witnesses and people have a lot more Steam, a lot more investment on it. But it was a fine line between maintaining the security of a chain and maintaining the status of where we are in the governance of the top 20 witnesses for me yesterday. Maybe it's because I don't have a social interaction, one-to-one connection with these people. Maybe I need that more. But I've always just used this chain as a blog. Like, I moved away from WordPress to Steam. And the ability to get paid as well, or like earn something, was kind of a nice touch. So I'm more concerned about the security of a blog, and so therefore a decentralized blockchain and the governance of it now becomes front and center, because there's been many times where we've said we're going to fork, we're going to do this, and then that changes everything, right? Because like, who's going to code the next version? Who's going to code the next hard fork if we need to do it? Or who's going to upkeep the security? And I know we have all the developers on the chain, but like, and I know we have the Steam DAO kind of thing to be able to pay developers and stuff now. But just think of the amount of resources that Justin Sun has got, and how fast he can roll that stuff out. I don't know. We will see, I guess. But that's my kind of takeaway from yesterday. Take it or leave it. It is what it is.